Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?
On goes ball. Speedball might yet win it here for Wolves. Flash in the shot. What a goal!
Hello everyone, happy December the 9th. It's Dan Hughes here, Little Dan of the Fancast, hosting the latest Wolves Fancast preview episode in association with the 90 Minute Network, and this episode is brought to you by Pro Prep. I've got with me tonight Kim and Gully. How you doing, guys?
Not bad for a Thursday.
Been better, but we're soldiering on.
I nearly crashed my car on the way out of work. I got stuck in all the loads of Birmingham New Road traffic, so that's why I'm a bit haphazard at the moment. Let's just get your opinions on Saturday's game against Liverpool. Kim, obviously we lost 1-0, late goal to Swine Divock Origi. What was your thoughts on the performance as a whole?
I think at the time I felt like we were actually quite unlucky, maybe, and I think that was purely because of the way that we lost. However, I think on reflection, I don't feel like we tested Liverpool as much as we probably could and should have. I think they had about 17 attempts in the end, albeit they didn't create loads of clear-cut chances. But, obviously off the top of my head, the Jota header chance, the one that was almost cleared off the line, those two were obviously really clear-cut chances. So I think we played brilliantly defensively, but I think going forward it was quite disappointing, and we could have hurt Liverpool a lot more than we actually did.
Yeah, I agree. I think it felt like one of them heavyweight boxing matches where some paid heavyweight has just been put in with like Anthony Joshua or Deontay Wilder, and them just trying to go the 12 rounds and not get knocked out. That's the way it felt to me. Gully, you released a tactical analysis yesterday on our YouTube channel. If you haven't seen it, guys, get on it. It's a nice little insight into what the average fan doesn't look for or see in the 90 minutes. Do you want to give us a brief recap of that?
Yeah, I think kind of to change the narrative a little bit, I had a look at really from the Liverpool perspective as to what they did well against us, and ultimately the fact that we only had 3 shots at goal was because we couldn't really breach the final third of the pitch, whether it was through the midfield, players like Fabinho and Thiago doing a really good job of stopping, like some Adama, Raul and Hwang. There was a period of tactical fouls in the second half in particular, which really stopped our momentum on Adama as well. It's all part of the game plan, I guess. If you can't stop him by fair means, then do it by foul. And the other thing was continually letting us run offside in the second half, which looks entirely infuriating to Wolves fans, I'm sure. But it's amazing how simple and easy it is for professional footballers to just be over eager when trying to make runs, and as long as you're confident in your back line, just sticking in a line, you can actually take advantage of the offside rules there.
It felt like a recurring problem, didn't it? Our sort of attacking impetus from our central midfield in regards to Dendoncker and Neves not really having the legs or the pace to get into the right areas. And obviously there was a few times in the second half, particularly where the ball went over the top of their defence. And like you said, our attackers were either dawdling and found themselves offside, or Dendoncker's legs just weren't getting on that final ball. Bruno Lage mentioned in the last couple of days about the tactical fouls and referees needing to be a bit more on top of it. Fabinho do you think Fabinho was lucky to not get sent off on Saturday?
It's just one of those, isn't it? I feel like it could have gone either way. I think Wolves fans were just a little bit biased towards the fact that we all would have liked him to have got sent off. I think the reality is it's touch and go, isn't it? It wasn't reviewed, was it? Was it at the time?
I don't think they do for yellow cards. I think Fabinho was lucky not
Was
to get
there
yellow carded before he actually picked up his first yellow, wasn't he?
possibly, yeah. I think, I mean, they know what they're doing and they know where they can push the boundaries to, don't they? And bottom line is, we've probably not been as savvy as other teams in the past. So I think Nuno actually used to mention it with regards to our midfield, and I actually think Moutinho is pretty good at getting away without getting carded and stuff. It's amazing how few yellow cards he actually picks up, given how many.
He's got a cheeky face that usually gets forgiven in front of a referee, doesn't it?
He's
Yeah,
got a good face, hasn't he? I think that's what it is.
I don't know whether that plays on the referee's minds. They don't expect him to be, flicking at ankles and stuff like that. But I think if you think about the game, did you really feel like there was a warranted red card in there? I don't. We've watched games, I'm sure, where you actually feel like there's a need to send a player off. It didn't feel like that really in that one.
No, I think what Bruno Lage mentioned is it's the consistency of refereeing. Is it that if you're gonna book a player, make sure it's the consistency throughout the 90 minutes. I think the booking that he actually got was probably less of a booking than the one he should have got booked for. But that's the whole reason of tactical fouls and stopping Adama in his tracks, wasn't it? So that was our only outlet, wasn't it, on Saturday?
Yeah, definitely. I think that was probably the issue, though, wasn't it? That he was the only outlet. So, it's almost like the crowd are just waiting for Adama to inevitably stroll past players and create chances. And it's kind of unfair, and it's like it's hard because every game I literally change my mind about Adama and what he brings to the team and how frustrating he is. And next week he'll be great and create loads of chances that we inevitably miss, which isn't his fault. But then the week after he'll have loads of chances which he should have put away, or he makes wrong decisions. So
The thing is, I think Bruno's trying to create this dynamic in our attacking areas where there's going to be Adama games, there's going to be Pedence games, there's going to be maybe even a Trincao game here or there. It's not always going to be the case that he has to play every single week unless he's literally playing out of his skin.
Does that help these players though, if they're literally chopping and changing every week and they're having one chance to perform, or if not, they know they're going to be rotated again? I mean, and I don't think particularly Hwang's. Obviously, you feel like at least if he gets a chance, he's more than likely going to score. However, he hasn't really been influencing games lately, has he? You could argue that Pedence and Adama deserve a chance, but I think for me, the key is that Adama just doesn't really fit the new system, having to sort of cut in and, play as an inverted winger. I'm not sure it's working for him because he naturally doesn't fit that mould.
I don't know about you, but I don't entirely agree with that. I just feel with Adama, it's purely down to confidence, and he's making chances for everyone. I think the one stat in the week which we put out in regards to, I think there's only Kylian Mbappe has created more chances in Europe this season in the league than Adama, and he hasn't even started some games for us. The one opportunity on Saturday, he barged Virgil off the ball, went inside, and he's obviously classic Adama. His decision making wasn't great at the end. Me and myself felt he should have got his shots away, but in the end, it fizzled out into another wasted attack, didn't it?
Yeah, you just want a bit more conviction from him, don't you? And to really, grab a situation by the throat. I mean, the one time he did it was against Burnley, where he actually decided, I'm going alone. I'm going to go and strike this ball at goal. And I mean, if he scores, it was brilliant and whatnot. But then we all go back to the point that he could have passed it there. But I don't know. There are double standards, I think, when it comes to Adama. He is basically tasked with the most difficult job on the pitch against the most difficult teams often. And that tactic was clearly against Liverpool, give the ball to Adama, see what he can make of situations like 50 yards from goal. And, he's only in that position because he's capable. But then people will get frustrated with him when he doesn't necessarily deliver on what is basically the hardest job in the team.
I think people still neglect to remember on a regular basis that we paid £18 million from him from a relegated Premier League side. He had probably a 6-month period where he was, to a degree, unstoppable with Raul in that sort of Europa season. But we're still treating him as if he's £100 million player every week. And if he was £100 million player, he wouldn't have ever graced a Wolves shirt, would he?
I think he does. He does give off that perception that he has. You know, he can just go past about 5, 6 players like it's easy, and we almost, I think, take that for granted sometimes. Like, what other player just goes past 5, 6 players more than a couple of times a game, which he generally does. I think it's just so frustrating because, as you say, he's a confidence player, and the lower his confidence is, the worst his decision making is. So when he's like he's confident, at least he puts some good balls in. He at least gets some shots on target. When his confidence is low, he completely can't even get a good cross in. Doesn't make the right decision. Holds on to the ball too long. So I can see both sides, but as you say, Dan, to be fair, he was only an £18 million player from Middlesbrough. He's just got the potential and the attributes to be a lot better and provide a lot more output than he currently is.
What's the sort of transfer fee that we can realistically expect for Adama from this moment? Say, come January. I mean, who's going to come in for him first, and then what's a realistic value? What's your opinion on that, Gully?
I feel like, as it stands, you're talking. I mean, don't like getting into a conversation about transfer fees just because you are what a person is willing to pay for you to a certain extent. Not there's not necessarily an actual, ballpark that we could all agree upon. But if you talked, if the club was offered 30 million quid right now, I think they'd probably take it because ultimately he's not produced at the levels of a 30 million pound player from an output perspective. But it's just that game changing nature that he has that everyone's going to want to try. It's like that that guy. Everybody wants to fix because he's cheated on his girlfriend millions of times, and there's always that one girl who thinks, what, I'll fix him. But it never quite seems to happen, does it? But we'll see what other managers look to try and solve the riddle, I guess.
What sort of team do you think could even come in for him, Kim? Because I can't work out what team in the Premier League is going to come in for Adama. I thought maybe Tottenham when Nuno was there, but I don't know.
I was
Unless he
about
goes
to say
to Euro.
Tottenham. Yeah. But now they've got Conte. I don't know. Is he a Conte style player? Maybe at Liverpool. I know that sounds crazy, but they haven't got exactly the best squad depth, have they? They don't like to splash out loads. So if you're talking Liverpool, they'd probably want like the installments type deal, like we had with Jota. So I wouldn't be that surprised if they come in. Actually, I think
Liverpool as well.
Yeah.
They tend to go for those kind of project players as well. They don't buy ready-made, absolute, completed, players. They'll buy someone who can work
Minamino, for example.
Yeah.
And don't forget, Mane and Salah, they're going to be without in January, so they're in shit street, aren't they? Really, they've got Minamino, Origi.
Yeah. Liverpool seem to be the only team that are plausible for me to come in for Adama, purely because he's not going to be as expensive as we would hope as a fan base, and he's not Champions League tied either. So it seems to go hand in hand for me. But we'll see come January, won't we? This weekend we head up north to face Pep Guardiola's Manchester City. They came off the back of a 3-1 win away at Watford last Saturday and a 2-1 defeat away to Red Bull Leipzig in the Champions League last night. We've played Manchester City 14 times in the Premier League, losing 8, drawing 2 and winning 4. Apart from that 3-2 Christmas victory, any Man City games stand out for you, Kim?
I think the obvious one, well, there's 2 obvious ones actually, isn't there? There's the 2-0 where we were 2-0 down at Molineux and then Matt Doherty scored the winner to come back to win 3-2. And then there's the 2-0 away when Adama, believe it or not, scored 2 identical goals when he was running through. yeah, I can't see that happening this time. But those are quite memorable, I guess. Quite in the. I don't particularly. I'm not very good at remembering games, but those two games I can remember pretty clearly.
Yeah,
Anything for
I
you,
was
Gully?
I've always got fond memories of the League Cup game that went to penalties. Um, just because I felt like we were a championship side at the time, and we played brilliantly, and
Yeah.
we probably should have won that
You
game.
look at the side that they put out that night as well.
Yeah, exactly. And we had Brighton and Bakari leading the line, so I enjoyed the game, enjoyed the performance. Just always felt what could have been with him. Imagine him scoring the winner in that kind of fixture. What could have been for his career, and who knows what he might have made of that. But
That gives
yeah,
me nightmares, though, that game. Like, I'd try and erase that one from the memory because I felt that we could have won that.
we should have. We had
Yeah.
all the one-on-ones and all that.
Yeah,
But
we should have won. It was a
I
proud
feel like
performance, wasn't it? I think that's the general gist of what you're saying.
yeah, and I don't know, Man City. I feel like we never let ourselves down against City. Really, we had the game last year away from home where we were literally just parked on the edge of the box. Cody somehow manages to pull that goal back off the free kick. I don't know how we managed to score in that game, but then we did let ourselves down to concede the goals that we did towards the end of the game. But other than that, I've always felt we've given a good account of ourselves. I think there was the one where Bolly got sent off as well, wasn't there? And it was just the game was done at that point. But I'm never totally pessimistic playing Manchester City, basically, because I feel like we've got enough talent to threaten them.
Now, we have always been a bit of a inconvenience, haven't we, when it comes to Man City? We know our roles. Obviously, we usually have five behind, five at the back, and Nuno's usually had his set up really well against him in the past. Obviously, this is Bruno Lage's first test against Pep in the Premier League. You mentioned a moment ago last season, we lost 4-1 at the Etihad. It was literally, like you said, an absolute attack versus defence display from Wolves that night. At the time, I thought Nuno was going to land one of his lucky tactical masterclasses when Cody nicked that equaliser in the 61st minute. And if my memory's correct, I think Adamo had a big chance at 1-1 as well. And like I said, we capitulated. We look at some of the stats there. 22 shots for Man City, 73% possession, 92% pass accuracy. It was an embarrassing night, really, wasn't it, when you look at that scoreline?
Yeah, and I think if I remember rightly, I felt like didn't we hold our own for a fair bit, and then it felt like as soon as we conceded the one, even though Cody managed to nick a goal, it was always there was always gonna score, and I feel like that'll be the same. I feel like we're gonna set up the same and how we have for the majority of our away games this season and be really negative. And I feel like it could be a really long day for us on Saturday if Man City click into gear and if they get the first goal.
That game last year, I remember, because I think Semedo actually ended up starting in the right-hand side up top. We had Hervé playing at wing back, and he just screamed out from that lineup. That's what we were setting up to do, and just kind of holding on for dear life. And I'd compare that with the game at the weekend. A lot of people have spoken about the fact that we were negative. I don't really think we were negative. I think there was a concerted effort to try and play attacking football and get on the front foot when we could. We were just stopped from doing so. And that's the other thing that I feel like when we watch this game, it's almost worth considering Man City will, A, for a start, they'll keep the ball away from us at all times. And B, when they do lose it, they will be straight onto us to get it back. And that's what their real art is almost to. They are obviously a really good football team in possession, but, winning the ball back is so important, especially against a team with players like Adama Traoré and with, unfortunately Neto's not around, but, someone like him would be a danger in that kind of threatening situation. So that's where, they'll show their class, I think.
Based on what you've seen, obviously, against Liverpool on Saturday and what you've seen out from Man City in in recent years. Is there any team better than Liverpool in the world at the moment? Because my opinion is Liverpool are, because I think Man City are the only team that Man City have to change the way they play as a default when coming up against Liverpool.
Whereas Liverpool don't need to change their style when they come up against Man City. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
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 I can't work it out. Like, I feel like Liverpool are the complete team, e.g., great defence, great attack. However, as soon as if they do start getting injuries and when they have the guys go off to the African nations, I think it'll show and I think they'll struggle. Whereas Man City, they've got a great squad. However, I still think they're missing that focal point, that striker. Whereas I think Liverpool have got, although they don't have your out and out goal scorer, they've got Firmino and they have all their attacking players that go around them. I don't know. It's hard to compare. And then obviously you've got Chelsea, who are just like a machine, but not as exciting to watch. Maybe I can't quite decide who I think is going to win the league. Basically,
what's your opinion on that, Gully? You mentioned it just in regards to Liverpool, Thiago and Fabinho, how well they kept the ball, but the noticeable difference that I've noticed between Man City and Liverpool is Liverpool's relentlessness to get the ball back when they do lose it. I don't think Man City have that same intensity of getting the ball back as Liverpool did on Saturday.
Yeah, I think to a certain extent they do, but because they keep the ball so much, you're not seeing it as much, if you see what I mean. You know, Liverpool aren't actually that obsessed with dominating the ball. You actually see quite a lot of long balls from them. They don't feel the need to absolutely keep the ball away from you, whereas City kind of do. And I think that's where, like you're saying, the Liverpool versus City games, you get a little bit of a situation where, City, they're almost afraid of losing the ball to Liverpool because then in the transition they do absolutely kill you. But I mean, from what I've seen of City this season, they've been really comfortable with basically just being defensively sound and just kind of trusting their quality to come up with the goods as and when in different moments of games. You know, I think the first half against Watford, they weren't necessarily, overtly trying to, put them out of the game in the first 5-10 minutes. It was quite almost like a gradual kind of process, and eventually Bernardo Silva comes up with the magic, and he's up there with Salah this season in terms of the performance levels. I think
we've got Joe Butters from City Extra has just joined us now. Obviously, how's things going, Joe? Obviously, big win against Watford last weekend to keep you well in the title race. Bit of a blip against Leipzig with a bit of a weakened team, but how have you found City's performances overall this season?
We've been on almost the best version. I think a lot of people have been saying that this is the best version of City that we've seen under Pep, which I think is maybe we have to look at the end of the season to know whether that's really the case or not, because I will always sort of have the Centurion season of 100 points as like some of the best football that we've ever played. But I think in terms of the way that we're, as he was just saying there, in terms of the way that we absolutely dominate games at the moment, like this is on like a level. Obviously, we've always dominated possession to some extent, but it's never really been in the way that we have been recently. It's like you say, we sort of with Watford, we kind of slowly strangled the life out of them for that game. Obviously, they got quite a fortunate goal in the second half, with it sort of bouncing back off the post, and that kind of thing can happen every now and then. But whereas last season it felt like we were a lot more defensively solid in terms of pure defending. Like Ruben Diaz came in and completely changed the defense. This season it feels a lot like we've been sort of getting through games without conceding very many goals, largely because we've not really given the opposition a lot of the ball at all. I don't have the numbers to hand, but I would be shocked if we're not the team in the league that's had the least chances against them in terms of shots. So yeah, we've been very good this season, and it's nice to see that we're finally sort of top of the league to make up for that, because we have had a couple of blips against the Southampton and Crystal Palace games, with two in particular that felt like real like games that we should have won and just like didn't for a number of reasons. And those kind of games can still happen every now and then. Particularly against Wolves in seasons gone by. Actually, we've had a couple of sort of banana skin games against you guys. So but based on our current form, obviously Leipzig game aside, but I just say a very rotated side, and I think everybody in the squad was well aware of just how utterly meaningless that game was in terms of, we were already top of the group. Leipzig were confirmed third in the group unless Bruges did something against PSG, which they didn't. It was we're looking good at the moment, very good. So I'm feeling confident going into this game, but as I've said, I've maybe felt about that going into the games against Wolves in the past, and it's not gone quite so well for City in those games.
Just on those,
I mentioned just before
numbers,
you came on. Sorry, Gully. We have been a bit of an inconvenience to Man City, but as strong as Man City, you have, like you mentioned, do have the occasional blip in regards to Crystal Palace and Southampton. Let's hear those numbers, Gully.
Sorry, I was just having a look at the XG figures for City, and non-penalty XG conceded is 9.3, and the next best team is up at 13. So it just shows you the gap between second best and the best, and they're really not giving anything away.
Our issue can be with games like that, and it was very much this was very much the case against Crystal Palace, and from memory off the top of my head has a lot of the time been the issue when we played against Wolves, is that sometimes that XG of 9.3 is very good, but I would say that sort of the ratio of those chances to the XG is probably like quite low, like in terms of we don't give up very many chances, but if we do,
it's going to be a big
lot
one,
of the time.
Almost,
a lot of times they can be like someone like Adama, for example, who has done this to us on many occasions, just breaking through, having a one-on-one with the keeper, and then that's quite a high XG chance. So we've been really good at sort of keeping out sort of a lot of scrappy goals. Like we haven't conceded very many of those. Like you saw the goal that West Ham scored against us a few weeks ago, like an absolute worldie from like the outside of the box in the last minute. Like goals like that are the kind of things you can't really do much about. But as long as we can sort of keep, because I'm assuming that Adama Traore on the break is probably going to be at least part of your game plan at the weekend, unless there's something wrong with Adama Traore. So as long as we can sort of hopefully reduce that from being an issue, then we should hopefully be able to dominate in a similar way that we have been in recent weeks. I hope.
I don't think he's definitely going to start though. He might.
Oh really?
He might not start. I'll be surprised, but it's not 100% that he will, just because we rotate so much with the wingers. Yeah.
It would be bold. Absolutely bold if Bruno didn't start Adama, purely on the fact that you look at him being our only outlet against Liverpool, and we're pretty much going to be fighting against the possession stats again on Saturday. And if we're ever going to create any chances, it's going to be purely through Neves, Moutinho, or Dendoncker in that midfield, making one interception and getting Adama on the halfway line, running against your back four. Obviously, City lost to Red Bull Leipzig last night with a relatively weaker side. It's quite deflammatory to say weak, isn't it, with that team? Because that starting 11, as you can see on the right, pretty much still finishes in the top 6, doesn't it? I mean, if not top 4 easy. But let's look at the team that City put out against Watford last week. Obviously, Edison in goal, Cancelo, Laporte, Diaz, and Kyle Walker at the back. Rodri, Gundogan, with Bernardo Silva in the midfield, with Foden, Sterling, and Jack Grealish as a sort of false 9. Kim, what sort of areas within that sort of City team do we need to be looking at exploiting without calling in Jesus and the rest of the other gods?
I mean, it's hard to even see a weakness there, isn't it, really? I think, as you said, Dan, I think the only hope that we have is that we get Adama on the ball after City have probably about 90% possession in the first 10 minutes, and we, go and hit them on the break. That will have to be our game plan. You'd like to think that our fullbacks will try and push forward, but I can only see sort of Cancelo and Kyle Walker doing the same to us. So I feel like this is the game where we've just got to hope that Adama and probably Raul almost reconveal their little sort of understanding that they had prior to Raul's injury. And I don't think it's happened quite as much since Raul's been back, but they have linked up really well in the past. So it might be that Bruno almost pushes Adama a lot closer to Raul and just see what we can do on the break. But in answer to your question, I'm literally struggling to tell you who is the weak link in that side. I mean, the only thing that you can say is there's not an out and out striker, but I don't think that's necessarily a weakness because there's so much interchanging, obviously, between all of the front players. I suppose all you could say is that's a quite attacking sort of lineup with sort of four really, players that like to push on. So will that be the same team on Saturday? Possibly there might be a couple of changes because we all know that Pep likes to rotate. But I am hoping that Gundogan starts because he's in my fantasy team.
Priorities.
Anything within that sort of lineup there, City's lineup, Gully, that you think we need to be looking at? I mean, the key duel for me personally is Bernardo Silva versus Ruben Neves. If Wolves are going to have any chance of breaking away, we've got to be getting Neves intercepting and getting us quite on the counter rapidly. I think, but Bernardo Silva, I think he's got more goals and assists than Cristiano Ronaldo this season. So it clearly shows how informed Bernardo is.
Yeah, it's ultimately going to come down to the fact that man for man we can't match up with City. We just got to use our attributes to the best of our ability. And when you pick a team against City, I think it's almost just thinking, well, which of our players can do the most with the least possession, and ultimately it just comes down to the fact that on his day nobody can live with Adama. I think Neves is exactly the kind of midfielder who can release quick passes into space in behind the defence that's likely to be positioned quite high, and then hoping that the timing of the runs are better, the decision making is on point, because ultimately we're going to get so few chances to actually attack their goal that everything has to come perfectly. And that win back at the Etihad when Adama scored those 2 goals at the end of the game, every point in those moves, the decision making was right, and that's where you really need your players to turn up and stamp their mark.
Is there any sort of mindset to do what I mentioned before, Liverpool, and maybe sacrifice Wang and going to a central midfield of 3?
I wouldn't be surprised if he did do that, I wouldn't be surprised if he played 3 in centre midfield, added Moutinho to your lineup there, and then sacrificed Hwang and almost played Adama through the middle with Raul. That's not beyond possibility. However, and probably a fair adjustment, because the reality is no matter what formation we play, we're going to be under the cosh the whole game anyway, aren't we? So, yeah.
Johnny Lara in the comments says, do Wolves generally come out to play and not just sit back against the big 6? I think in recent years, we've usually had a set game plan, which is to sit in, but not to park the bus. What's your opinion on that, Gully?
I think ultimately, when under Nuno, we were defence first as a team. So it wasn't necessarily whether it was the big 6 or any team really. We used to stifle teams really, really, really well, and that was basically the approach pretty much all the time. Now it'll look worse because against the bigger teams we won't have as much of the ball, and so objectively and aesthetically it'll look like we're just parking the bus most of the time. But that was just the way we approached football in general.
Do you know what the difference is though between when Nuno was in charge when we were on form? We would park the bus to an extent. However, as soon as we got that ball back, we were breaking quickly. We had Jota and Raul who were absolutely insane, like together, had that partnership. Whereas now we'll obviously park the bus, and we have done in a lot of away games, to be fair, but we just don't break quick enough. So, we're not winning games. We're not looking as free flowing. But the reality was, even a few seasons ago, I think we were parking the bus, but we were just very good, and each player knew their job, and we knew where we needed to be in order to break and score the goals. But I just don't feel like we've got that currently, personally.
Do you see any changes being made to the City lineup, Joe? Obviously, we've heard in the last sort of 24 hours that Phil Foden's been having a few ankle issues of late, but he should be in contention for Saturday, as well as Nathan Aki. But is there anyone in that lineup that, from the Watford game, that may be rotated?
I would say that Foden probably, I would certainly hope, will be rotated. He was brought off as a precaution against Leipzig at halftime. Apparently, he felt something in the same ankle that he had injured earlier in the season from quite early on. So I'm hoping that if he is going to be involved, it will be from the bench rather than from the start. In which case, I would expect Grealish maybe to move out to the left, and I would probably put De Bruyne in the false nine. Now that he's sort of got 90 minutes, well, near enough 90 minutes in his legs against Leipzig. He played really well in the false nine against United, I think, before he caught COVID. So I'm hoping that those changes will be made just to give Foden a bit of time off, because I don't really like to see players sort of played through injury if it can possibly be avoided. That back four, I'll be surprised if it changes. The only way that I could maybe see it changing is if after Kyle Walker's ridiculous red card that he got at the end of that Leipzig game, if Pep decides that he's going to want to punish him. But if Pep's got any sense about him, Kyle Walker's probably the only person in the league that can match Adama for pace or come close to doing it. So if there's any way that you want to sort of try and nullify that counter-attacking threat, you've got to play Kyle Walker. The midfield three should stay exactly the same. Bernardo and Rodri were given a total rest. They didn't even travel to Leipzig, so they're both going to have had a bit of rest in their legs over this week. And I think I think realistically there'll maybe be one or two changes from the Watford game, but this general collection of players that's in that starting 11 with one or two changes, maybe this general team is the one that is playing just so well at the moment, and really doesn't have much of a reason to be changed out, especially seeing as all the players who did come in against Leipzig, who maybe had a starting spot to fight for, definitely did not do enough to really give Pep any sort of headaches this weekend.
Kim Gully, does it make you feel sick inside that he's just mentioned Kevin De Bruyne might be back, and I hadn't even considered him looking at those two lineups?
To be fair, I just like watching him play, so I've not got a problem with him playing. It's okay.
I think whatever.
Has he got a goal or assist against Wolves yet?
Yes, I think the day we won 3-2 coming from behind, he played Sterling in for the one where he went through 1-on-1. Yeah, from what I remember. Yeah.
Whatever lineup.
I mean, like,
we're going to struggle, aren't we? So whatever lineup City play, if Kevin De Bruyne's on the bench, they've still got absolutely world-class players. It's crazy to think that Kevin De Bruyne isn't almost in the preferred starting lineup at the moment. I know he's had injuries and stuff, but that is crazy to think, because I think he'd still walk into any other team in the league.
Yeah. It's strangely enough, I think Wolves would probably be. Sorry. I was just going to say, I think strangely enough, Wolves are probably better to come at this from the same way that Crystal Palace did. Like just rather than sit back and hope to soak up the pressure, just press us from really early on. Like just go for it and actually just like give our back four like some problems on the ball, because a lot of things that teams tend to do is just sort of almost ignore that. From Ederson to Rodri, teams just kind of ignore that and don't even try to press it, because because one, you're committing a lot of men up the pitch to do that anyway, and two, most of those players are very good at coping with the pressure anyway and probably won't get pressed on. But really, actually, to my mind, whenever teams have just gone out and tried to put the pressure on really hard from minute one. That's usually been when our defense has made some mistakes. And then if you're pressing us at the centre back position rather than pressing us in the front three, yeah, you might leave yourself a bit open to something going the other way. But it's your best chance of scoring, because if you get the ball off Rodri or Laporte, for example, you've only got one or two players to beat. Whereas if you get the ball off, Bernardo, Sterling, Foden, you still got to get through the rest of the squad before you got a chance on goal. So to me, I would suggest that Wolves maybe have a bit of a better chance of, if they do that for the first maybe 10, 15 minutes, maybe it goes badly for them and maybe they concede. But if they get a goal, then you've got something to defend then for the rest of the game, haven't you? Rather than just sort of sitting back and hoping that City don't score and that you get something on the break.
It's a horrible roll of the dice playing against Man City, isn't it? Like you just said, we either start with high intensity and hope we nick a goal, and then you've still got to play the rest of the 80-plus minutes trying to keep them out, which is as difficult as it 0-0. Before we go to our ad break, Joe, can I get a quick score prediction from you?
God, I never want to predict a win. My dad's side of the family are all Wolves fans, so I find it really difficult to predict a win against him.
He should disown you then for not following in his footsteps.
That's what he gets for moving to Manchester and making me born here. I'll say we've not been keeping many clean sheets lately, so I'd say Wolves will score, but I think we should hopefully have a bit too much, and it should be, I'd say maybe 2-1. Not a very comfortable game, but I would predict in our current form a City win.
Thank you, Joe, for coming on. Hopefully, we'll see you for the return fixture at Molineux later on in the season. We're going to go for an ad break now, and then we'll have ourselves a little quiz with Gully and Kim.
Attention parents and students, we have an incredible exclusive offer from our friends at ProPrep. This is the perfect study tool for university students undertaking science, technology, engineering or maths related modules. It can halve your study time. ProPrep provides bite-sized videos relevant to the modular course, which can be accessed from any device at any time. It's already helped over 500,000 students pass exams so far. They provide customised STEM study tools that match your syllabus. Long lectures are condensed into short and clear video tutorials. And after the videos, you can go through what you've just learned with interactive exercises and practice questions so you'll be ready. You can even submit questions to ProPrep professors and they'll receive a video answer within 24 hours. ProPrep have created a special offer just for our listeners, which all you need to do to access it is go to their website, proprep.uk/info/football. For more information, our listeners can sign up for a free 30-day trial now. No credit card information required as well. That's proprep.uk/info/football. ProPrep, the perfect study tool.
Thanks, Rich, for that advertisement for our episode sponsors today, ProPrep. Gully and Kim, I'm not going to keep you long because I know you've got a lively evening ahead of you. Let's do a quick quiz, shall we? The first question is, you've got to name the... there's two people, so there's an actor or a musician or whatever, and then there's a Wolves player. So the first one is this. Name the actor, name the footballer. So it's an actor with his head on top of a Wolves footballer. I'm going to come to you first, Kim.
Is that Stefan Meyerhofer, the player?
That's the footballer. So who's the actor?
Oh, I don't know who the actor is, though. I don't watch films.
I think apparently this actor is a Man City fan, and his name is similar to Stefan Meyerhofer's.
Is it David Hasselhoff?
Do you know it, Gully? It's David Hasselhoff and Stefan. It's the Hoff, yeah. He's had some work done in that picture, I think.
I was going to say,
yeah. David Hasselhoff and Stefan Meyerhofer. The second question is, name the TV helper and the Wolves player.
TV helper, what does that mean?
He's got a sort of a TV show where he helps people with a certain task in their lives.
Ah, okay. I know this one. It's Martin Lewis Goban, isn't it?
That's not Martin Lewis, is it?
It's Martin Lewis, the money-saving expert.
Yeah. That don't look like him.
Yeah, Martin Lewis and former Wolves winger Lewis Goban.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the third one is a really easy one because it was Man City. It's name the music player.
Liam Gallagher.
Is that McAlinden?
It is 3 out of 3, guys. Liam Gallagher and Liam McAlinden. One last question before you go, and it's the classic name the goal scorer. So it's during our Premier League period under Mick McCarthy. There's just one quick clip which gets repeated. Name the Wolves goal scorer.
Ward, first time ball. Off the post and in! It's the first time he's touched the ball. Ward, first time ball. Off the post and in! It's the first time he's touched the ball.
That's hard.
Tough one there, guys. Tough one.
That is hard.
So Mick McCarthy season. I think it might have been our first season back in the Premier League under Mick McCarthy. Towards the end of the season.
Andy Keogh.
Do you need me to play it again? Kim's gone with Andy Keogh, Gully.
I think it might be Silva and Ebanks Blake.
It was Silva Ebanks Blake.
Was it?
If I remember correctly.
That was a stab in the dark.
Yeah.
I don't know what that goal was
Wolves
from. Wolves
won. Blackburn won. Stephen Ward cross. Ebanks Blake with one of the softest headers in off the post past Paul Robinson.
I don't remember that goal.
It was
I remember that goal.
Yeah. Literally like 2 or 3 games before the end of the season. We was already safe. It was basically, we drew that game 1-1 and Steve Morgan was on the pitch at the end of the game saying, we will not be in this position this time next year.
Was it at home? It was at home?
No. Yeah, sorry, the home game. So it would have been it was the season before. So we drew 1-1. Ryan Nelson scored for Blackburn and Ebanks Blake came off the bench and with his first touch of the game, nicked us the point. Thanks to everyone who tuned in tonight. Continues to support the Wolves Fancast. We've got a few competitions on all our socials at the moment where we're doing a 20 days of Fancast, loads of novelty Wolves themed prizes. Hopefully we'll be back after the Man City game with a ridiculous, heroic. I'll take a draw, but what are you guys thinking for prediction-wise?
We haven't predicted.
I know, I've just said I'm going for a heroic draw, but what about you guys?
3-0 Man City, sorry.
Cheers, Kim.
Was your question...
It's meant to be festive this year.
Do we predict instead of wanting to predict?
I wanted to predict, so hopefully I'm wrong.
Oh, you think
Kim's
you
going
might
3-0 City.
Some reverse psychology. I'm going to go 1-1.
Yeah, I'll go with heroic 1-1 where Adama nicks one on the counter. And hopefully, as I said, we'll be back after the Man City with our latest podcast. Bye for now.